Not millions of fish, but I think you can tell by looking at that, all quality fish, and that is exactly what fishing with casters is all about. Welcome to White Springs Lakes. Just recently I managed to win a 2-day festival down here. I had 2 mega days catching big quality silverfish on the Match Lake here and just over there on the Pleasure Lake. By using a combination of casters and ground bait, both days I've caught those big quality skimmers that you're really looking for when you're fishing a weight match. But not just here, it's been working everywhere for me this winter. But this method isn't just all about the bait. The rigs are super important for this. The lighter float you can get away with, the light lines, fishing a super long pole, especially when it's flat calm, just like it is today. So let's get down in the box and get on with it. Right, we're down at the lake now, and I've decided to sit on peg 12. Got a nice little bit of open water here, and there's normally those bigger skimmers live in this area. In the festival I was just 2 or 3 pegs down to the left there, and we managed to catch 13 big skimmers on the tactics that we're going to use today. It's freezing cold today. It was -4 here last night. As you can see, everything's white here, so it might take a little bit of time to get our first fish, but when we get going I think we should catch a few. So I'm going to go to the van, get my box, get some kit set up, and I'll join you when we're going to prepare our bait and rigs. Right, so I've just put my box down, got a few bits out ready. First thing I want to do now is get my ground bait sorted. I want to give my ground bait plenty of time because we're using a lot of crushed expander. I want it to suck all the water in. So what I've done, I've gone for my usual mix, 1 part dark, 1 part green, 2 parts crushed expander. So I haven't mixed loads up for today. I've mixed up half a pint of green, half a pint of black, and 1 pint of crush. So what I've done to that then, measured my quantities out, put them in my bowl, and then just straight in with a pint of water, mixed it up. It'll go like sloppy paste really, but I want that crush expander to take all our water on because there's so many particles in it, and they're so spongy. I want it to suck all the water in, make sure they're well saturated. And then what I've done then, I've just left it, set my rollers up, bits and pieces, come back to it, broken it all up, and then just put it through a riddle. And what I'm left with then is that lovely mix there. Look at that dark green tinge to it. I'm just super confident in that mix, but I think ground bait is really important to, that you're confident in what you're using. Loads of people use different mixes. You don't have to use this mix. This is just what I like to use because I've caught so many fish on it. But obviously there's millions of different ground baits out, but just get your confidence really up high. So when you feed it, you think, right, I know I'm going to catch some fish over that. There's nothing worse than feeding some bait and thinking that mix wasn't quite right. So that's the mix. Really important, get that done as soon as you get to your peg, nice and early. Let it take the water on. So that's zipped up in that bag, that's dandy. So let's set up a pole up, let's get a rig on, have a little plumb round and see where we're going to fish. Right, so we've got the pole up. I've had a little plumb round already and it plumbs up absolutely perfect for what I want to do today. One thing I think is really important is finding 2 lines that are the same depth, so you can just like swing back and forth between the 2 of them. I don't want to be shipping back, changing my top kit, because all that happens then is you get lazy. I've done it myself. I'm fishing away thinking I should be on the other line, but because I've got to ship back, change my top kit, but go back over there, you stay on lines for too long. So if you can get 2 lines the same depth at sort of 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock or 10 and 2, it's absolutely perfect. So the rig I've decided on is the exact same rig I used on the weekend. Obviously for this, conditions have got to be perfect. They're pretty much perfect for fishing light little rigs today. It's flat calm. I got white water, which is really important in the winter. If you can find some white water with a black bristle, it shows up your float so well. any broken water with like a yellow or red tip can be super hard to see a float. So just make life easy for yourself. So the rig, bear in mind it's 5.5 foot deep on this peg. So what I've gone for, single 5 slip, just a brilliant all-round elastic. Winter time when you're fishing for skimmers, you can catch little tiny roach or great big bream on it, and it's absolutely perfect. And what also is nice about it, because it's so soft, because we're fishing at 16 metres and the bank is a little bit, you know, awkward behind us, it's a high bank, I just want to be able to hook those skimmers, ship back, plenty of elastic out. I don't need to be like looking back, checking where the fish is. I can just hook them, ship back nice and steady. The elastic will take care of the rest. So I got 014 Supernatural mainline, nice light mainline, helps you float, like dot your floats down. I find if you use a too thick a mainline with fine bristle floats, it's hard to get them to sit right. But the lighter mainline you can use, they just sit absolutely perfect. Down then, just got 2 little number 10 back shots there. A little bit of stability, I can sink them down if there's a little bit of a skim on, hold my rig in place. And now, one of the really important components of the rig is the float. That's a 0.25 Maggot Slim. It's got a 1.2 cane bristle on that, super sensitive. Winter skimmers and silverfish are notorious for a little tiny bite, and you're just looking at your float thinking, has that gone? And you strike and there's one on. At least with that cane, everything's more magnified. So when you get a bite, the bites are a bit cleaner. And I noticed at the weekend, I was never struggling to see bites. The bites were nice and clean, which is really important. Running down from there then, 3 little number 13s. Tunas, really, really important. Don't sort of just shot your rig to capacity. Leave a little, when you shot your rigs up at home, leave a little bit of bristle sticking out, fine tuna, because when the light changes through the winter, you may want to nip one off, get a little bit more show off, the ripple gets up, nip one off, maybe even nip 2 off if it's really bad. But then when it goes flat calm, put them back on, get that float right down to a tiny, tiny little dimple. That is so important. And then moving on from the fine tunas is our shorting pattern. A really popular winter shorting pattern for silverfish, even F1s, this is brilliant. What I've got there, I've got 7 number 11s, reverse taper style, just getting further and further apart as we get closer to the hook. And then just to finish off, a 5-inch hook length and an 18 F1 maggot. I think those F1 maggots, when fishing casters, the caster just sits perfectly in them. So I'll either, you know, if it's really hard, I'll fish a 20 or I'm fishing for smaller fish. But today we're hopefully going to catch some nice skimmers and some big eyed. I'll go for an 18s. So that's the rig. Over the weekend, that was so important. I had a rig set up at 0.4 because it's 5.5 foot deep. I thought I'll fish at 0.4 as well. Honestly, I never caught a fish on it. And the whole time I was fishing that rig, I was thinking, I need a light rig here and just have it falling through. This was the rig. So don't be afraid to fish really light floats, even in 5 and 6 foot of water. Okay, we're ready to put the initial feed in. Now, this is one of the most important parts of your session, is getting this right. So what I've got my 2 long lines. One I'm going to go negative. That's where I can start my session or my match. Hopefully catch 2 or 3 quick fish before we drop on our slightly more positive line. And then I'm hoping that's going to be where we catch the bulk of our fish. But the way we're going to feed the 2 lines is really different. On our negative line, what I've done, I've got some slop mixed up. So all I'm going to do is feed a little ball, that sort of size. That's really wet, got a few casters in it. So that's, I just feel like that's about as attractive as you can get, like a really sloppy ground bait, nice bit of vapor trail coming off with a few casters in it to pull some quick fish in. So that's going to go in right in front of us where we're going to start. So let's quickly pop that little tiny ball in. I'll always feed the line that I'm going to start on first. So let's feed that, then we can look how we're going to feed the other line. So I've got my far bank marker there and got a nice white strip of water. So I'm just going to plop that little tiny nugget in there. Ease in. Really important, get your rollers set up right, especially when you're fishing a long pole like this. The bank is awkward behind me, so take the time, get your rollers right, it'll just help the rest of your session. And then for my second line, I've got a little 100ml pot here, and what worked the weekend, 100ml seemed a really good like base starting point for your feed for your positive line. But we're going to feed this in 2 different ways. So I've got my loose there, nice bit of loose. I'm just simply going to fill my cup up. Just keep putting it on there, just like that. Push him in, sandcastle style basically. But with this line, And what worked really well the weekend was feeding a quantity to start, but then loose feeding casters over it and fishing through the water. I think if there's skimmers about, they absolutely love groundbait, but what they also love when the water goes clear is loose fed bait over the top. And on the second day, this line probably accounted for 70% of my fish. I had one run on it. I must have had 10 and 10 goes. It was absolutely amazing. So let's feed this, and then we'll loose feed some casters over it. And hopefully, because there's a few fish swimming around topping, that loose fed caster will really draw them in. So again, take your time. You know, I do not want to spill 100 of bait halfway across my peg on a day like this. So out she goes. They've got some nice white water, but what I've got beyond it is a dark strip of water. So that's going to be my far bank marker. And what's nice with that, when I'm loose feeding my casters, I know exactly where to feed them to. So just hold your little cup on the surface. And there we are, that'll go down, spread out, carpet at the bottom. But what I'm going to do, whilst my pole is out there, just to get my eye in, I've got my couple of casters. You know, and we're not talking about leathering casters in here, we're talking about pinging like 6 or 7 casters every couple of minutes. So there's a fish just to my left top there, so just flick a few casters in. That's absolutely perfect, that. So that's our initial feed done. Probably not going to be a super quick start, so I'm just going to tidy my peg up a bit, give it 10 or 15 minutes to settle. We'll drop in on that negative line and hopefully we'll catch a few quick skimmers there, and then later in the session we will absolutely tear them a new one on that positive line. But it's been really cold, so we'll see what happens. So those lines have been fed now for probably 10 or 12 minutes, and unbelievably I've seen on my negative line, seen an odd fish blowing up on it already, which is about as good a sign as you can hope for. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop my glasses on. I think winter fishing is probably even more important than summer fishing to have your glasses on, because the light can get so bad. So these are just a set of Costa Sunrises, these ones. They're not cheap, but for the amount of times you wear them, it works out to pennies really. So they're on. Take that glare off the water. And let's drop in on our negative line. Just going to start just a nice single caster, like not a dark, just like a nice golden caster. I'm going to try and pick out a nice one. He's a bit small, that one. That's a nice one there. So a decent sized caster, and I'm just going to, I'm not like burying the whole hook in it. I'm just sort of threading it up the shank. So it's just sort of looking like that. And let's have a look on this negative line to start off on. Look, see, there's a fish fizzing up. There's something over that groundbait, because what you'll find is, and what I found on this lake in particular the first day, we only caught 13 skimmers, but I knew when there was one in my peg because the groundbait would start like pimpling up and stuff, like there's something over the top of it. So with our light rig now, I want to give him a chance to see it, so I'm just going to flick it off out to the side and hold on to it, let it all just fall in, because so many of the fish I caught over the 2 days were either on the drop or literally seconds after the float settled up. So we're not going to loose feed nothing on this line. This is just like a quick response line. What we'll do, if we do catch a few and it tails off, I'll just give it another little blob of that slop. So at least we've got our options covered. If they don't want that groundbait and loose fed, we've got this to drop on. But I always feel like, especially for silverfish, you want a positive line somewhere, because that can be where you get your best run of fish. And all the time we're fishing this now, it's just going to be a case of dinking a few casters off to that other line. I don't want to kinder him in, I want him spread over a little bit of an area. I think it's just more attractive. So it's going to be a case of sitting tight now for this first little part of the session. And hopefully as the water warms up a little bit, we'll start to get a bit more of a response here. There's another bite. What's that one? Nice little response off this line for sure. Oh, slightly bigger. Still not really the ones we're after, but we get in there. And I just knew there was a fish there then, because like I said earlier on, that groundbait just started activating. See, like the surface of the water was all shimmering. There we go. Nice skimmer to start on. Well, second fish really on that line. And what's amazing about this line is, for the amount of bait you feed, like I'd be happy to catch 6 or 7 fish just off that one feed without even having to think about topping up. It's amazing with skimmers, like how little amount of bait will hold some fish in your peg. But I did know that fish was in there then, and we had a nice sort of a slow pull under bite, and clonk, we were into him. Considering it was -4 last night, I think 2 fish early on in the session is a really good start. So let's carry on with this. Hopefully we can catch an odd, one or two of those proper ones. And what's nice is, because we're fishing there, that positive line is getting a good chance to settle. Build it up with that loose feed. Hopefully there'll be some nice skimmers gathered up on that. And probably some eyed as well, because we're loose feeding it by the time we drop on. But for now, we still want to keep on this little negative line. Again, another one of those chunky skimmers, I think. Plenty of these ones feeding today, just not them bigger ones yet, but it is still early in the day really. It's normally later on in the day you catch those bigger fish. It's never a bad sign catching these. So I think I'll try and catch one more off this line, and then we'll swing around where we've been loose feeding those casters over that slightly more like positive initial feed. Let's see if there's any fish come to that like more of a loose feed approach rather than a negative groundbait approach. It's just about working out on the day. No 2 days are the same, but if you cover your options and feed both of them, at least you've got it in your locker then on one of the lines. You should catch a few, and then all you need to do then is just, revert your other line, well, either to what you're catching on, or just plumb up a new line and start again, so at least you've got a couple of lines to go on. Like if I was catching all my fish, there we go. Now that was on the drop there, and that's exactly how it was the weekend. That's where this rig outscores that sort of more positive bulk style rig. You've seen how quick that bite was then. Is that a skimmer? It's either a skimmer or a nice chunky eyed. What we got? An eyed, look. There's, look, nice chunky eyed. Literally on the settle that was. But that is a good sign for our loose fed line if there's a few of them about. There you are. I've just dropped on that positive line where we've been flicking a few casters. First look in, and it's been in there literally seconds. And we've hooked a decent fish straight away. Now, I don't know whether that's going to be an eyed or a skimmer, but it's definitely a better stamp. I think that's going to be a big skimmer. Now that had been in there, got to be 10 seconds, yeah, nice skimmer, look. Now these are what we're after. There we go, that's better. So that's the fish we're after on casters. Sort of that stamp. Nice size skimmers. So that's a great start on our line, and that's the benefits of like priming up a line. You know, they've been sat there now, you know, for probably like an hour and a half, just sort of picking off those freebies. So what I want to do, I'm just going to dink a few really quick up there. So again, just leave that rigging to the side. You'll be amazed, like that eyed, how many you get on the drop. So that is an absolutely amazing little 5-minute spell there. We've had a big skimmer, a tench, and lost a fish. I think that could have been a tench, the one we lost as well, you know. This loose feed has absolutely just transformed this bit of fishing. We had a nice little start on that negative line, a couple of small fish, but we've had 3 drops in now over this 100mm groundbait and loose fed casters. And we've hooked 3 proper fish. So if this was like a match now, what I'd look to be doing now is loose feeding my other line as well. So let's see if we can nick another one on this. Oh yes. Now we're talking, yeah. Another quality fish there now. What we got? What is it? Another one of those skimmers. There we go. Another nice skimmer there. This loose fed line is definitely the way today. Especially when that water goes a little bit clearer and when it's really cold. I think a lot of the time the fish are up off the bottom. And just like little light rigs like this, strung out, loose feeding. Just a real good way of attracting them and catching them. And what you'll find, because you loose feeding with a catapult rather than tapping bait in, you'll have a nice little area there. And when you catch one, it's not like disturbing all the other fish as much because they're a bit more spread out. They're not like feeding off a 10p piece. Couple more casters. It's funny because on this lake, there we go. Look, now that is literally on the drop. What's that? That rig hardly even trimmed up then. I was just saying, in the festival day when I was on this lake, that negative line was best. Just feeding groundbait, loose feed didn't really seem the one. But when I was over on Pleasure Lake on second day, like I've caught almost all my fish, like I'm catching them now, just dinking a few casters in. And I caught so many, just like that one, where you sort of lay it in, it hardly even gets a chance to trim up, and it's under. But it's working on this lake today, so that's why you want your two approaches. A really negative line for your start off, and then this line is when you're just going to build your peg up slowly. And when you get on it, oh yeah, the skimmer, look. Let's see. These are the fish we were catching the weekend. Dandy skimmers. On the drop, so it just goes to show they're definitely up off the bottom, mooching round. So again, just take your time, pick out like a nice yellowy coloured caster seems to be the boy. You might have just noticed there, I was fishing actually past my feed on that one. So I've shipped out to the end of my dolly butt, flicked the rig out and literally on the settle, something's had it. And that's the beauty about loose feeding, it's like you've got loads of little pegs within like one swim. Like we've caught quite a few today to the left of the feed. And now we've just dropped long and that's what we're after, look. One of those big skimmers. Just hanging off the back of that feed. Lovely. Well, I think that proves the effectiveness of casters and the combination of casters and groundbait. We had a nice start on a negative line, just fed that little blob of slop, early doors, got away to a nice start. We probably had, what do we have, 4 or 5 of those nice chunky skimmers. And then eventually after about an hour and a half, we dropped another line where we'd just been dinking a few casters in over that 100mm groundbait, and then we've caught fish like this. We've even caught a tench, would you believe? And it was -4 last night, so look at that. Tench, big skimmers, 3 big perch. Not millions of fish, but I think you can tell by looking at that, all quality fish, and that is exactly what fishing with casters is all about. So get out there, give it a try, and report back with what you've caught, because I've had an absolutely brilliant couple of hours on a freezing cold winter's day.